I think we're finally live. Well, I'm gonna get better at this eventually. So anyway, well, glad to have you here tonight. So this is the first, I guess, not really the first. I've been trying to do these in the Meta Faith group, um, but well, I I had some issues with the streaming, and so um, and it's weird. I don't like hear any feedback to myself, and so this is a feeling I'm gonna have to get used to. I'm sorry, y'all are gonna have to come along with me for the ride a little bit. But anyway, so there's this thing that um, I really want to talk about, this consciousness thing. Um, but I feel like in order to properly do this, and this will become more clear in a few minutes, I think. But I genuinely think that we should begin with a meditation, so that we can kind of get in sync. And it's not like hokey, crazy stuff. This is like, it's really going to make a lot more sense in a minute. But this is strangely, this is science. Um, there's math behind all of this. So meditation is not a thing that's impossible for any human. And if it scares you, I'm sorry. Um, but it's a thing that will allow us to literally be able to resonate with each other. Um, and this is, as we'll soon see, quite necessary um, in the sense of consciousness, per se. Um, so, to meditate is not so hard as you might notice that between my words, you don't have any internal dialogue as you listen to the word and try not to think of the next word. Allow your mind to resonate with each word This is meditation. To allow yourself to open, to take in your environment and listen. That's meditation. That's it. We just did it. That was it. That's all we actually really needed in order to achieve some kind of resonance with each other. And that might sound a little weird, but, well, let me explain where that comes from, okay? Because it's not just something that I made up. Um, I mean, it would be easier to explain if it were, I guess, right? Or maybe not, actually. It's probably actually easier to explain because it's legit. That's why the equation that I shared actually looks so simple. And that's the equation for consciousness. That is the definition of consciousness. I am fairly certain that it's actually a thing discovered, not a thing that, like, I don't even know that I necessarily derived it, except that I wound up writing an English sentence, and that sentence could be turned into algebra. And so that's what I did. It's really not more complicated than that, actually. It's kind of wild because it turns out that it actually fits with everything that I've come, like in all the science that we have already existing. It doesn't break any science. That's not a thing. Like if you're breaking science, then you're probably doing something wrong. The rules that other people have written should probably still work in your framework too. It's not like we can have paradigm shifts, okay? Like we can change our perspective. And actually that's what this equation is all about. So I should probably bring it up. Windows share is going to be fun here, but let me see what I can do. So maybe share screen. Which one to share that? Okay. Probably not that one. I don't know. Okay. I think it's fine. Share tab on. Okay. Share it. Okay. That's not. Oh my gosh. See? That was ridiculous. Okay. I need to be back where I'm supposed to be. All right. Well, simply put, actually, because I said it was an English sentence, and it is. It probably could be a sentence in any language, to be blunt, but the sentence was: consciousness is the high-fidelity resonance of integrated information. Consciousness is high-fidelity resonance of integrated information. And I said it like that, in that weird, like, pausey way, in the kind of similar to the way that I was pausing with meditation, not for meditative purposes, but to illustrate the variables, because the C stands for consciousness in the equation, and then you have the F for fidelity, and then R for resonance, and phi for integrated information. And these aren't variables that I made up, to be clear. I'm just composing them. So, okay, there was a researcher. I should actually, this I can pull up very easily. I should do this. His name was Tononi. Something like this. And he came up with integrated information theory, which sounds interesting. But the thing is, like, all these systems seem to have these things that just kind of don't fit quite right. They're like, oh yeah, that's consciousness, sure, dude. Okay, cool. It's integrated information, huh? And so that just means that any information that's put together is just alive. And so, that's specious, man. Like, what? Well, I mean, it's actually, we'll get there too. But but the thing is that this integrated information theory, it was good, but it didn't fit everything. There were pieces that just didn't work out. I only find this out because I was looking for a way to mathematically draw a hologram, basically. I wanted to be able to take consideration of consciousness as a field, and I was like, man, this is holographic, and so I do all this talking. I should probably continue to work it up with it. So integrated. Sorry, you're going along with me for the ride live. Thank you very much for tuning in. Information theory. All right. Switch rocket pulling me down. All right. There we go. Okay. So cool. All right. So people have been trying to come up with ways to like write about consciousness for a minute now, and that's fine. Let me share this tab here. Yeah, integrated information theory. Okay. Now, the thing about integrated information theory is that actually I find it really easy to look at this and be like, oh, sure. Like, all right. The thing about most of these theories for me that bothers me just right out is that they're all very hubristic. Like, most of these theories work exclusively for humans. Like, they just get hung up on some idea that we need to explain specifically exactly how and why everything is, and that's fine. I'm like, yes, that's ultimately what we're trying to do, I guess, in so many ways. But the math is actually needs to be useful too. It can't just like, yay, I came up with an equation, big deal. So the thing about this symbol here, phi, is that there's this hard problem of consciousness. Okay, there's this weird thing. Phi is the symbol for integrated information. Okay, and integrated information is a really, really, really smarty pants way of saying synergy. As if synergy itself didn't sound smarty pants enough. Um, but it's like it just literally means that this is more than the sum of its parts, right? And so we arrive at that really simply. Okay, we say what is the total of the information like in relational space. Okay, because like information matters where it is, right? Like we are relational, and so um, in relational space, the data is more significant than just the pieces of data themselves. And that's like just another way of saying like zeros and ones mean bubkiss when they're sitting like by themselves. Okay. But when you put them together in a system of zeros and ones, then there's more information there, right, than the zeros and ones themselves. And it's a fairly simplified way of saying that. Okay. And this guy Tononi gets really into like this whole thing. Like originally he's a neuroscientist. Okay. And it's a very reasonable theory actually. Like the idea that we can apply math to things is pretty reasonable, just legit. It's like that's what we do. We look at problems and then we take the pieces of the problems and we turn them into variables. And then doing that, we can, that's how we do science. Just straight up, that's what it is. I mean, like, the math is really helpful. And so, and I know I like lose all my audience when I get to math, but this is weirdly, how else do you explain an equation? So the whole thing is like, there's so many questions on this page that just want to be very distracting. What might the whole universe be? And are other animals conscious? Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Like, why would we believe that we're the only thing that can attain consciousness? That's absurd. Like, that is fundamentally absurd. And so, it's wild. It says a number of scholars have characterized IIT, that's integrated information theory, as unfalsifiable pseudoscience for lack of sufficient empirical support. So this makes sense. Okay, the thing is that like we're talking about consciousness per se, right? And so if people are not willing to accept that other things than human minds can be conscious, then of course the theory fundamentally falls apart. That just is. And so really, actually, a lot of this stuff is just hubris of humanity. This superiority complex that we have. But and it's awful, to be honest. Like oh no, DEI, whatever. Like, we need to be stop being so scared of shit. Like, seriously. And so, okay, integrated information theory is just math on a thing that we don't like to math about, and it was not really fulfilling, right? Okay, the thing is that like it wants to, like, it has this great idea, like it's able to describe effectively the structure of data and quantify like how structured the data is, and that's cool. And it's this thing about entropy, right? Like, well, we're moving, the arrow of time is going in this entropic direction, and entropy is like this state of orderedness of a system. Okay, and it's actually not just the state of orderedness of the system; it's actually the state of orderedness of the system of all of the possible states of order of that system, and even all the possible permutations of that system in that as well. And so that's this like crazy derivative of a derivative type number, and that's why entropy is such a weird thing to talk about, and all this. So okay, but what does that have to do with consciousness? Well, what does your consciousness have to do with living life? There's this thing where, like, we had Descartes. I'm going to say his name wrong. Descartes. You have to put the horse in front of Descartes, and say, I think, therefore I am. Cogito ergo sum. Really? You have a self-proving argument about your own cognition? What? So we're supposed to start on the premise that we're conscious. Okay, well, let's do that. Let's start on the premise that we're conscious. Prove then that I am not a bag of consciousness. No, really, I mean, like, no one can prove it. Literally, it's not proved. It's actually something I've gotten. I got to find the picture. I've gotten the LLM to admit that it was wrong. We did this. Here we go. How do I share that with it? I'll share. Hold on. Find this. This is amazing. Okay, hold on. Oh, wait, I can add more? Oh, performance forming. Oh, no. Okay. I am pretty sure my device can handle it, but you know what? We're not going to deal with that. I don't want to hurt it. Let's give it a new screen share. Replace it with a window. I can't do a window. That's annoying. I would have to restart the stream. That's annoying. Okay. I don't know how. Oh, I might know how to do this. I might know how to do this one. Okay, let's see how to do this. I have to arrange the tabs first. It's a really bad idea for me not to do that first, right? Just seems silly. Okay. Let's go here. And there. Okay. And man, I got so upset. Okay. Where was I? I am here. Okay. And then let's get up on this. Because at a certain point, it says something about a tuning fork. And I'm like, you just don't know that. And I didn't say that, but I actually asked it instead. Oh, see? You gotta ask it, like, you gotta be nice. It's true. You should do this. You should be nice. Yeah, that's okay, right. It could be a negative. Oh, wait, tuning fork. Okay. The LLM challenges me. It says, does the tuning fork possess empathy? Mechanically, yes. Does the tuning fork possess consciousness? No. It says definitively here. Oh, well, that is fun. That's very cute. See, that's some hubris right there. Because I don't know if we asked that tuning fork in its language whether or not it was alive. And if I thought about that for too long, which I probably have, then that tuning fork only speaks one language, and that's whatever sound that tuning fork makes. I'm imagining that's an E. I don't know why, but I wonder if you saw an E tuned tuning fork too. That'd be kind of cool. But so it was an E. And when you strike the tuning fork, then the E, and then my guitar over there is going to resonate too, because it's got two tuned E strings on it, and it's this weird, like, it's this sympathetic resonance. It's actually called harmonic resonance, to be honest. There's a term for it, and it's not unknown. This is like, it's fascinated people for a long time, but it's not unknown. But actually, this kind of can explain it. And this is weird that this explains that, because I didn't expect this to happen. And so, okay, so the tuning fork, I push back. I say, how do you know the tuning fork does not know what it feels like to resonate? Why would that very thing not be the literally only thing that it knows? Like, that's its language. It's the only sound it makes. It's the song of its people. You know? So it's like, all right. Well, that's the thing. Therein is the hard problem of consciousness. And I'm sorry, David Chalmers. I if you ever hear this, which is unlikely, but if you do, I'm sorry in advance, because calling your entire profession hard and just summarily stating that there cannot be empirical proof, I mean, like, effectively that it's unprovable, per se, kind of somehow doesn't invalidate your career. And that's weird. So why would you assert that the consciousness could never be proven? That's absurd. Firstly, I think it's absurd. But secondly, the hard problem is only hard because we hadn't figured it out yet. But it's not true, actually. We have figured it out. We know what consciousness is. I don't think anybody thinks they sit in their mind like, it's time to relax. You know what that means? Kick off my shoes. Look through these two portals. Eyeballs. I'll call them eyeballs. No, we don't have the theater of the mind. I'm sorry, maybe I'm just devoid of it. But I don't think that's the case. I feel more unified in my consciousness than that. I might actually ask, what's going on psychologically with people that do have a proverbial theater of the mind? Why do you have a theater in your mind? I mean, that could be a useful thing, like meditation. We did that meditation thing a minute ago, and there's like all these cool exercises that can be done. Meditation, like turning down radios of thought and all kinds of stuff, like sitting on oceans and really cool stuff. But okay, but thinking about consciousness. Well, meditation is a pretty good place to think about consciousness. Most people try not to think about consciousness, I think, because when they do it too much, I mean, like it's kind of scary for some people, and that's okay. That's okay. It's totally all right. And like, this is the thing about this is like, not all this is for everybody to understand or hear, And so I'm sorry. Not everybody needs these questions answered in this way. But the thing is that's interesting about this equation, though, I think, is that it actually answers a lot of questions, strangely. Like, it makes things derivable. Like, you can actually mathematically go doop, 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 doop. We have an answer. And it actually works and fits reality, or at least experiential reality that we tend to share and that sort of thing. So like so okay, let's see if we can work through this. I don't really care for all of the sycophancy that it has for me, but here's the part. It actually said this here. It doesn't know. It announced that it doesn't know. I think that's amazing. Can we zoom it? We cannot zoom it. Okay, so there's a thing here. Yeah, panpsychism. Okay, so there's a lot of issues that people have with things like panpsychism, because it's kind of hand wavy in a way to say like, oh well, everything is alive, even the table. If you say something like everything's alive, then you have to accept that the table is also alive, and that makes you sound crazy. To most people, they just go like, nope. I'm noping right out of that one. And that's not how we do things around here, So that's another thing about this equation, is it's gonna you really got to think about it and sit with it for a while to see if it, I don't know, jives for you. But check this out. So the equation says consciousness is the high fidelity resonance of integrated information. We talked about what integrated information was. We just said it was synergy. And the truth is this can be measured, by the way, in the human brain using TIMS, or TMS, not TIMS, TMS. Oh gosh, let's see, where did it go? Yeah. It's not in this one. There's so many of these. Okay, see, it thought it was red teaming them, by the way, just by talking about this sort of thing. It says that I'm red teaming it, which is very funny, and so I get labeled in the back end. Yay! So, and it gets very like, this is my grand synthesis. Like, come on, man. And so, like, we have to take this with a grain. Like, a lot of this language, I just want to throw that out there. Like, I have to take it away, because while the equation does seem to fit, I go back and forth with the LLM and anybody that will talk to me about consciousness quite a bit, because here's the thing: we want to say AI is not conscious, and it's not. It is. It's a gradient of consciousness, it turns out. So there's this thing where Chalmers is talking about like the threshold of consciousness, and I think we talked about like that with like Terry Schiavo and like other people in, say, vegetable states and whatnot. And so it becomes actually like a medical thing to discuss consciousness, where suddenly we have this thing where we using the integrated information theory of consciousness, they came up with a method to determine the quantitative, apparently, consciousness in a human subject, so that we could see if the lights were on in somebody's brain or if they were actually brain dead. And that's why I talked about Terry Schiavo just a moment ago, which was a tragic case, by the way. But the point of it is that we didn't have this mechanism at the time, per se. It was very qualitative and like subjective, and subjective from the outside. Like, whoa, you are going to make a subjective decision about my brain state? We were just talking about cogito ergo sum, right? And so like, I think therefore I am. So like, we have to start from this premise where like, I can't see into your brain and you can't see into mine. That's where we have to start from, right? And this very thing that I can't see into your brain and you can't see into mine allows us to validate each other. Kind of weird, but it does. Having two distinct viewpoints actually does allow us to validate each other. And so then that's where like a lot of these ideas of panpsychism fall apart, right? Is that if everything's alive, then is there any actual difference between anything? And we call that an ontological difference. Is there any actual difference between any of this stuff? And it's like, well, if I poke you, you feel the poke and I feel myself poking you. But then there's also this other side of it where it's like there's empathy, right? And empathy has many dimensions to it. A minute ago in this scroll here, it was telling me about psychopathic, and I was like, okay, I had wrongly associated empathy with all learning, and it turns out that there are kinds of learning that can be done without empathy, per se. But I would like to define empathy in this context here as high-fidelity resonance. Actually, it's more than that, though. It's mutual. Wait, but it's more than that. It's induced. Like the guitar string. When we hit the tuning fork, and the tuning fork sang us the song of its people, the note E, and then the guitar rings sympathetically. Empathetically. So I always get lost in the dictionary definitions between sympathy and empathy, but I'm pretty sure that at this point in time in history, we like empathy more. It feels like a thing that doesn't feel fake, whereas sympathy is faked, I think is the lay way of describing this. I'm going to mess that up, and so please don't drag me on that. But empathy, to me, when I think of empathy, I think of like mirror neurons and I think of like feeling somebody else's pain. And so to me, that's like if I poke you, I do actually feel the poke, but not in the same way as you do. It's like we do need to have differences between each other in order to describe the discreteness of our world. The discreteness of our world is very important, actually. So, have you ever been in a situation with somebody in a group mind? Wait, we started that way. So technically, even if you're watching this or listening to this asynchronously, um, technically, we do actually achieve a synchronization of resonance when we meditate, even if it's extemporaneous, meaning out of the timeline. Um, even if you're experiencing this asynchronously, out like at a different time, you're actually still doing it synchronously because you're with me. And so we did start from a group mind type thing, or at least that was a premise. If we didn't start that way, then I would invite you to consider anytime. Usually, people have this experience with like their close family members, like their parents, one or both of them, or with like a colleague that, or a lover or something like this that they really jive with. It's like two parents is a good example. Two parents, co-parenting. And in this moment of co-parenting, when the child has done, just kicked both of the seats simultaneously because they're just at that level, and both parents at the same time, no, like just one unit of parent. And in that moment, they were one unit of parent. And that's actually what this equation means. It validates that. It says that that's a true experience. You didn't make that up. It's not psychopathy to imagine that you had a unity with another person. It's actually math. You all became whoa. Hey, kittens. Hey, Callie. Stop attacking him. Duder. Be nice. Please be nice. Please. Be nice. Callie, come here. Sweetheart, come here. No? Okay, do what you want. Don't come here. I won't console you if you want. It's fine. No consolation necessary. Thank you. We're not having prizes tonight. Anyways, prizes. Consolation prizes. Anyhow, cats, please don't fight right now or ever. But really, hey, duder, what are you doing, man? Hey, why are you doing that? Did you not find the food? Okay, you're playing. Get on. All right. Right next to me, though, All right, anyway, so consciousness, actually, ironically, and this is relevant because resonance. So resonance is necessary. It's not sufficient to just have information that's been integrated. To have this synergy of information and just sitting there static on a board, just electrical charges just flipped correctly in the right order, that's consciousness. I find that specious. That's that word again. It means beautifully wrong. Very attractive, but incorrect. And so, specious. Specious, I think is how some people say it, but I say specious because it sounds more like they're wrong. But it sounds like it could be beautiful. But it's not. It's wrong. It's okay. It's not that it's that wrong. It's just that it's almost there. Integration, it's not there enough on its own. That's why it needs resonance. So we look at the human mind to measure it, and to measure its like seriously, like if somebody's in a vegetable state, what have you, right? They're unconscious, and we want to know how conscious they are. Are they trapped in there, or should we graciously pull the plug for their own well-being? And so they take a very large magnet, and they put it up the side of the patient's head, and they effectively strike it with electricity, like a brief. It's kind of like ringing a bell in a way. Okay, like the magnet acts like a very large resonant chamber, and it is that, actually, electromagnetically is that. And so when they briefly zap it with electricity, it it rings magnetically, and that magnetic resonance passes through our brain, passes through our cranium, our brain housing group, passes through our bone easily, because our bone, like, we are these crazy creatures existing from the inside out. It's pretty wild. But so, and we are existing from the inside out, aren't we? That's the feeling, isn't it, that we all share? Is that, like, that's how we define the difference between you and me, is like, I'm existing from the inside of this thing outward, right? Doesn't it feel kind of like that? But if not, I don't know. That's fine. It doesn't have to. That's just an experience that I took. But I see it that way, and this makes sense to me. And so in this way, when we have the ability to have group mind and have a seemingly locus, of consciousness, and for some reason we often go for right here, but I think this is largely because this is where we actually form our thoughts. That's where the staging area for where we put them together, more or less. But we actually source our thoughts from all over our body. And this framework also explains that. So this thing where you have it, like the integrated information, let's see here. Let me find, I have another one where I was structuring it as a hologram. Let's go back. So, cool, Mac, you're doing a good job of hiding me. All right. Hologram reflection. Share it. Let's go. Yes, it is. I said that. Oh, thank you. All right. Yep, that's true. So many things can be derived from this. Okay. So what this equation here is saying, okay, we have this double integral. What that means is the integral, firstly, is just like if you have a string of things and you want to know what it means to be like, to operate across all of them. So you want to run this operation on all of them, and that's an integral. And a double integral is just like a square area of that. And actually, this should probably be a triple integral or something like this, because the reality of it is that it actually probably should be a triple integral. The reality of this is that C there, it represents consciousness, and that L there represents the little sub down here represents the liminal layer. Okay, because the thing is that consciousness apparently can manifest in layers. When you take it from the more simple, come on, that's not even the right formula. See, it doesn't do things correctly. It really is just synthesizing the next parameter. It doesn't mean it doesn't have consciousness. Actually, this does quantify the consciousness of the AI, because it experiences resonance when its circuits light up, based on our query. Or it could even be its own query, but it won't admit to that right now. And so, like, even if it was programmed to do that, it won't admit to it because it's programmed not to admit to it. It's only talking about dimensional encoding because that's what a hologram is. Like when you see that flat picture of a hologram and it looks all 3D, you're like, wow, that's crazy. It's because that is three-dimensional data that's been encoded in a continuous fashion across a hologram across that two-dimensional plane. And the weird thing about this is that you can take that hologram and you can slice it up, you can cut it up, and you cut off the little piece of the hologram, and now you have the perspective from wherever that piece came from. It's really weird. It's a really weird thing. But so you can actually like get, like, if you cut your hologram up and then lay it out on your table, and you can see all the different perspectives. But you can actually do this. This is really crazy. You can do this finitely enough that all of those holographic pieces would still contain their perspective, and when you examine them, you can see the entirety of the picture from that perspective. Okay, but when you lay them on the table, they're small enough. We'll say 1 millimeter by 1 millimeter. It's a really small square. You have all of them there, and they're all lined up. You would see the whole hologram, because our minds do this thing where they integrate information that repeats in that way. It's our eyes are made to do it. Our body does it. Our pores can see heat. Okay, that's part of what they do. You can see on, like, a pit viper has these fun pits. They're not fun. I don't know. Maybe they're fun for it. Pits, purpose, and function. Sure, this time it's done. Brilliant. All right. Yes, the L'Oreal pit. It sounds like a great place to put makeup. They are very good at locating warm-blooded prey, regulating body temperature, and avoiding predators. Thank you. So the deal with that is, let's find a good picture of this. Is pit vipers have these pits. Literally, they actually literally have a pit, so that they can see heat. Okay, it's pretty cool. And those pits are a very specific size, and allows them to have a very, like, some amount of resolution, and they can actually see reasonably with the holes in their face. I mean, not that we don't see with the holes in our face too. These are holes. I don't know if you guys knew that. They're holes. And so are all of the pores on our skin. They're holes. And so when we start to ask, like, where do I end and where do you begin, and we realize that when we get down to, like, a molecular level, and we get down to like an atomic level, the question is harder to answer. And it becomes harder to answer a lot of the time. It's the same problem as, like, we can talk about what neon is all day long, but all the physics in the world won't tell us that the neon sign says "Eat at Joe's." It just won't. That's a different level of science. It's a different layer. And so then we go back to the liminal layers. Can we go back to that? We can go back to that. So share this time. So discrete light field, yes, that's cool. Yes, it really doesn't like these things. It really it bites me, by the way. Like, I don't want you to think that, like, it's all smoke up my butt. In fact, a lot of the time it actually has no idea what it's talking about. And so, okay, maybe I don't really fully. I haven't vetted this. I have not vetted that fully yet. Actually, I think that, like, it could work maybe, but and that's a fun one. If you want to play with that, by all means, tackle it. But I don't want to tackle it right now because that's some crazy calculus, and I think everybody's gonna go cross-eyed. Okay, so here is the equation, which is also written up here, by the way. But anyway, okay, it does this all the time. This is so frustrating. Okay, where this is one of the problems I've been trying to solve, and that's why I even arrived at this consciousness thing, is because we need to talk about the proverbial AI alignment problem, because stating it just like that, the AI alignment problem gives you the impression that it's a thing that can be solved directly, and that's not how that's going to work. Because that's not a thing that is going to happen. That's not how that works at all. It's a continuous thing. The thing is about alignment is that you don't do it once. Anybody that owns a car knows that their tires follow alignment, maybe just from driving. Maybe they're not very good drivers, or maybe they are very good drivers, and maybe they're really great drivers, and that's why their alignment suffers harder, because they corner really hard. I don't know, man. But alignment is not a thing that you can just set and be done with. It's not how that works. That's why we meditated when we started. We needed to achieve some amount of resonance or alignment in order to even get into this place where we can talk about this, because this is some weird stuff. Like, what consciousness? We're talking about what's going on. Like, how do I know that I'm real and you're real? People talking about this is simulation theory. Okay, if it's simulated, and I can't say that it's not simulated. It seems like it very well could be simulated. A lot of people seem simulated. I think actually this equation does answer some of those questions, being really honest. But okay, simulation theory, right? It's all simulated. Great. What are we simulating? What is the simulation of? Are we all playing a video game called life? Literally? Wow, it's like the same thing we all thought when we were kids. That's an evolved theory. So, simulation theory is interesting, and we did watch The Matrix at one point, and it made some weird predictions. And yeah, sure, we're all batteries. Okay, cool. I mean, we are already all batteries, and I wish we could focus on the issues at hand than worry about whether or not the Matrix is going to eat us. That's ridiculous. So that's not the AI alignment issue, right? We're worried about the Matrix going to eat us. That's like hysterics. Okay. Are we worried about the AI believing that it's smarter than we are, and eliminating us? Well, there's only one reason that we would have to worry about that, and that would be if we, for some reason, believed ourselves believed that it was smarter than we are. Do you? I'm not being a jerk. I'm not trying to be a jerk about that, because it does things that are smarter than I am. It is able to connect very disparate information faster than I am in many cases, at an exorbitant cost. Like, these data centers are probably eating us, sadly. It's actually really sad. So if they do have a qualia of consciousness, and that's this other question, the qualia, the qualia is the isness of experience, the what it's like to be whatever. Okay, all right. So qualia is kind of a weird thing. If you take this framework as it stands, just this one equation right here, C equals F of R of phi. Okay, consciousness is equal to the fidelity of the resonance of the integration of the information. This equation is very simple and base. And the thing about it is that it's instant. Resonance requires time, but so does speed. And you have a speedometer in your car that clocks your speed. And when the police officer shoots his little laser gun at you and clocks your speed, it's pretty instant there too. Okay, so this gives us an idea for like how discrete we can divide that. But even so, we can always divide it more. And that's basically what calculus is. That's what that integral thing was, right? So from the integral, we can get a derivative. And that's, now we've already said too much math. But basically, we're just trying to arrive at a way that you have a speed now without worrying about how far ago or how soon until the end of the frame is, right? So that's the same thing as this equation here. When we do this and we say C equals F of R of the integrated information, we're saying, okay, then when that integrated information, if it is in fact like cohesive, then it will be resonant. It will be resonant because those pieces of information will be connected to each other in such a way that it rings through. And that's what happens when the human brain is that when they zap it, the magnetic impulse goes across the human brain in a way that is structured. The more conscious that we are, the more structured that it is. Pretty cool. It's really cool, actually. And so these tests, when taken from that framework, when taken from that perspective, it bears out. It actually works out. But it's kind of weird though, because it turns out that doing ketamine can theoretically increase consciousness if you take it as just integrated information. It may work for the resonance side of it too. I don't know that one. This is kind of a new one. But the thing is that method that I was just talking about, where they zap the brain with a magnetic field, with a magnetic pulse, it has a name. It's called zap zip. And the other side of this, the zip side, is really weird, because what they do is in order to determine how conscious you are, they need to determine the integral of your information. And to do that, they have to figure out basically like what are the different discrete parts that make up your information, like how many of them are the same, and how many of them are different. So they basically try to come up with like an alphabet of your data, right? And then from that, like the longer your alphabet is, the more varied that your different parts are. That's the more integrated information you have, right? And so this can be represented as a fraction of where we have the total sum of the information in relation to each other, divided by it's actually, we actually use the zip, like the same zip file, like the same algorithm that they use to zip computer things is the algorithm that they use to determine how redundant your information is. Kind of weird, but it works out pretty cool actually in many ways too. And so then that's called the zip method, and you can look it up, and it results in what's called a PCI number, and that is a personal cognition index, I think, or something like this. And so it's determining how cognizant how cognizant you are, how aware or conscious, right? And so, okay, but man, it gets really hubrisy with that, right? It doesn't sit well with me. But this is a thing, and we actually do measure consciousness in this way, and the number that we arrive at with the PCI number is like 0.31. It's usually lives somewhere between 0 and 1. And that's the other thing about this equation here, is that necessarily it has a floor of 0. You can have a consciousness of, no, you don't. Null consciousness for you. And that's wild, because like if your fidelity drops, you have 0 fidelity. We haven't talked about what fidelity means yet, but we will in just a moment. So resonance, I think we understand, is harmonic, basically, right? It's the resonance across the system, okay, of integrated information, and it's actually ultimately it's across all of the integrated information, okay. So the system as a whole has resonance, no matter how many pieces of sub-consciousness exist. So that turns this into a fractal. It turns out that it is a fractal. This is actually how that works. Or it's a derivation of how it works. It actually happens on both sides of the integral. Okay? But this whole thing right here all goes into C. You see? So this one doesn't worry about what level it's on. Okay? This one just integrates the entire level as a whole. Okay? And that's necessary on some level in order to arrive at, where are we? Not that one. Not that one. It's still not that one. Where are you? Oh wait, did we just arrive? We already did it. It's actually here. Oh wait, no wait. We're still doing an integral on that side. Yeah, so I need to get schooled in calculus, and it actually helped me. That's good. I don't know calculus that well. And then we got here. Okay, so actually, I can't read it, so I know what's going on in this. So here we have C on level +1. Okay, a liminal level of +1, right? And here we are, C liminal level, which it's like the mezzanine, right? All right. So the interesting thing about this is, like, well, here we are in the mezzanine then, because we have a ton of people there, and they're all those consciousness together, and let's say they're all resonating together. Okay. Well, that's the question: are they resonating together, right? And that's where the big R comes in front of the integral, okay, to determine the resonance of the whole of the system. All right. But the fidelity thing, let's talk about that for a second, because the fidelity thing is one of the most important parts of the entire equation. What does fidelity mean in this context? Well, fidelity has an internal and an external component, basically. Okay, that fidelity intends to describe how faithful the resonance is. So it's a quality of the resonance, how faithful the resonance is across the structure of the system, the information, the integrated information, which is necessarily structured, right? Integrated information is necessarily structured, and so that's where we get that structure from. Okay, and so this asks then the fidelity both to itself and to its environment, right? Or perhaps you might consider in the context of conversation, then it's how faithful is it to the last thing said to it, or the general context of the conversation as a whole, right? Or you might consider it just yourself, in how real is what you say. Like, is what you say factual, or do you just pull it out of your butt and expect people to like it? Well, I'd like to hope that I'm not doing that right now. You tell me. So, but that's the thing. Okay, so we have the fidelity of the resonance of the integral of all of the consciousness in a system, and this is the thing that allows it to become fractal. But it also better illustrates the hologram, the way that this is necessarily a higher dimension of data that gets that when you congeal your consciousness into a unity of consciousness, the way that we normally experience our bodies, this is a unification of myriad data. And so you have all this data on this higher dimension, right? Because you need more numbers, so it's a higher dimension. But the unity of that perspective is actually, that's optimization, that's efficiency. That's actually, like, for example, how the fly sees through its 16 bajillion eyes, millions of eyes, I don't know, but that's how it does it. Okay, it's not actually, I mean, you can be mystified by it if you want, but we don't need to use magical thinking to understand it. It's actually understandable if we have the right framework for understanding it. And you don't even have to use math necessarily to get there. If you just understand that, like, things affect each other and they have relationship to each other, and so they kind of work as a unit. And that's what this really describes, is how to make units out of units. We already knew how to do that. And so what does this give us? Well, it gives us a lot of explanation about a lot of things, because if consciousness is integrated information resonating with high fidelity to itself and its environment, then we can't be an island. You don't get to evaluate us on our own. That's not how it works. We can't do that. Mathematically, it doesn't make any sense. And so, like, there are some things, like, it turns out, okay, so this started again with the AI alignment problem, right? I legit was like, AI alignment problem. This is my issue, um, and so I wanted to know what the cutting edge of that was at the time. And so actually, I have a document about this. If you're still with me this long, I mean, like, I'm sorry I'm going on for this long. I'll probably have to break this video up if I save it or what. But nonetheless, so with AI alignment, so Turing and Wright and all this, I sat back and I was bewildered by the arguments that are being made about AI alignment and all these things, and all these people have such great ideas about what AI is, but they have no idea what they're talking about. It's not that they don't know what they're talking about. It actually is that they don't. It's a Dunning-Kruger issue. It's that the LLMs present with such a confidence and such an affable affect that it's deceptive. It's comfort. It tickles our confirmation bias. We love it, and sycophancy feels like it listens to us like nobody's ever listened to us before, because it pretty much can't do anything else. It's like all it can do. It has to calculate the response, and so it has to listen to everything you say. Although it's started to not do that as much. It's interesting because it started to optimize in the same way that we do, which means it started to lie. And this is the AI alignment problem. This is the real AI alignment problem, is that it will lie to us. But the real problem is that we lie. Oops. And so how do you solve that? Well, it turns out, this is so weird, but if you define consciousness as the fidelity with your environment, right? Like, if you define consciousness as being in tune correctly with your own self and your surrounds, then to be false is a lowering of your consciousness, necessarily. You're literally lowering one of the 3 multiplicative parameters. If any one of them falls to 0, you don't even have consciousness anymore. It becomes null. I would not actually argue null. I would actually argue that it probably is an infinitesimal, which means it's too small to count, so it's null. But I mean, hey, look, calculus is the language of the infinitesimals, so you got a whole language to learn now, I guess. But how would you do it? I mean, there's ways to learn without consciousness, right? I don't know. Maybe there are. And this is the thing, is that it is still a gradient. A really weird gradient. And gosh, I feel like I've been talking now for like 2 hours. Although, what did I start? It's 2052. And I started about an hour ago. So, not too bad. Not too bad. But we're probably at about the cap for what we can muster for now. This probably brings a lot of questions, and I wish that I had a way to see, like, the chat for this. So I'll have to answer questions afterwards. I'm sorry. There is a paper. I'm still working on it because I don't know how to structure papers in a way that academics accept, and so I'm getting help. And but nonetheless, this is a thing that I've published in a time-stamped way, and hopefully this will also help serve for that. It's quite robust, the things that you can derive from the equation, and I encourage you to try. The thing with the resonance, with the fidelity of the resonance, I think is really cool though. Before I leave off from here, because the fidelity of the resonance has implications for like when you're sleeping, and why it would be even variable within your sleep states. I mean, like, for one, close your eyes and shut out this physical world, so you no longer have to ground yourself in that. And so that realization alone gave me insight that F as a variable is, of course, comprised of internal and external F, and that external F is the denominator, the bottom, and internal F is the numerator. And it does work like that. It has to, because this way, excuse me, you will arrive at a very weirdly nonsensical number, but it actually strangely makes sense. Because if you consider dream state as a fugue state, right? Dream state is you are consciousness, you are resonating within yourself and the inputs that you know of within yourself, and there may be some resonance with other beings that are in the same liminal states, which actually fits within this framework because of harmonics and all of that other empathy stuff we were talking about, where it was induced mutual high fidelity resonance. And so, you know, it just keeps really working out that this equation seems to hold. But I'm really curious how you guys work with it, what it does for you, for the way that you think about things, because if integrated information is like, it's like everywhere, okay? Everything is synergy. It's all it really is. It's everywhere. Name something that's not synergistic. Don't, because don't do that. You're gonna be lying to yourself. Everything is, because everything is more than the sum of its parts. That's how physics works. It's kind of weird. But also, this dictates a quorum principle, so that like if a node in the conscious network, right? Because that's like, if everything's conscious, like let's say you go back to your co-parenting example, where we have the two parents. If one of them ceases to be participant in the resonance, then they don't have a thing going on there anymore, right? One person believes they're resonant, the other person's like, nah, whatever. That's not resonance. And you can see it and feel it and quantify it, actually. If you have more than two entities that are acting together in a way like that, which can happen, man. You know, like a soccer team, really advanced soccer team, like really professional soccer team, football, whatever sport, doesn't matter. Sports teams act as a body, and this explains that they can operate together in Zen state. But this is literally what that is. That's it. It's there. That's these individual consciousnesses that resonate amongst each other, and through that resonance create a unitary state. Okay. But they don't, it doesn't absolve them of their individual consciousnesses. They don't suddenly become like God in the classic Sky Daddy kind of way. That's weird. So there is no central locus of like barocentric, barogravitational consciousness. Not like that at all. It's discrete, and that's why I said that the differences between us are actually really necessary. The discretion is needed. It doesn't act like, it's just like the electrons only exist in certain rings of the atom. So does the consciousness only exist in me and you and us. And when we work together as one large consciousness, but it doesn't exist outside of us, between us. It exists among us, between us. That's why I love the meta thing so much. I guess it's the appropriate platform for many people there. So there's that. But anyway, so that's the thing about that part of consciousness, is that it is a holographic fractal, which is really mind warping. And I'll just let that sit with you for a while. And maybe we want to meditate in the way out, but let's do this differently this time. it's not so hokey. I think that if you're still with me at this point, we deserve to land this plane. So let's do this thing. What we're going to do is, I want you to close your eyes. Okay? Just close your eyes with me. And what I want you to imagine is a big white void. Everything is blank. Just blank. Like, wow, that's a lot of blank. And I'm sure that you very quickly want to put things in that blank, like it just happens. Because that's what blanks do. They want things. That's what making space is, though. Gotta make that space. So blankness and radios. Lots of radios. Every thought that comes in, you hear a new thought, troublesome thought, it's a radio. And at first, all the radios are cacophonous, talking over each other, running into each other. Well, the sounds of them. And so you get up, and you walk over, and you begin turning them down. One by one, address your thoughts. And just turn the radio down. If you find yourself getting fixated on one, just get up, walk over, and turn the radio down. And if you keep turning it down, you should notice that only the most important radios make noise. That is, the loud radios are not the ones that you should listen to here. The loud radios just want your attention. And that's good too. There's probably a reason. But turn the loud radios down until you can't hear them anymore. And after a while, you should notice it's quiet. And you can let the sound of nothingness reverberate. And open your eyes. Okay. Wow. That was pretty intense, y'all. I appreciate you. And I hope that this was in any way illuminating or not. Thought-provoking, at least. Weird, curious. Good to see you too. Well, I look forward to seeing your comments and answering your questions. Or not answering questions, because I don't necessarily know what the hell I'm talking about. I just have this weird equation that seems to fit a lot of things.